What's up, everybody? I was working on this for kind of like a long-term project about Lutano and Lucario and how he plays him. And wouldn't you know it, with that, I was gonna upload this like a day after the December 9th update. Changed a few things about Lucario, but also the game just at large. After thinking about it for as long as I could, while trying to still upload this at a decent time, I figured let's go ahead and keep this. Just know the outdated information is gonna be about Power-Up Punch. It seems that the damage dealt from that was reduced, as well as stat decreases to Steadfast. I guess the only other thing to know as it relates to this recording is just that the HP recovered from scoring goals has been reduced, so the dunking strategy has been kind of nerfed a little bit. Just know that. I think everything else is going to be applicable, and I'm so sorry, but let's be real. This really sucked for me that this happened with the update. Thank you! Hello to everyone out there going to be looking at the top Lucario player. Now, I feel that you can't basically say that without being somewhat controversial or something, I don't know. We're looking at Lutano. I think some people are going to make cases for other Lucario players. You know, there's perhaps some of you know Sanji. I've always said Sanji, but I've heard people these days saying Sanji. Either way, I think you know who I'm talking about. So we're going to assume today that you at least have just a basic knowledge of Lucario, but we can absolutely glean a lot of information. Watching Lutano play as Lucario, well, let's describe it this way. I've often said that this team that Lutano plays on, which is called TTV, I used to always describe them as it's like watching a symphony. Everybody knows how to play their instrument or their role just perfectly. Such precision, and it's beautiful, it's musical. If I had to give Lutano a role, I mean, he would be like the conductor. I don't know that TTV really has one leader or anything like that, so let's not say in that respect, but hopefully we'll see it in this matchup here. But he's just going back and forth and commanding the match. Seems like he makes it go his way. Alright, let's just address what's happening on screen. Many of you are familiar, just in case you are new, of course. Lucario in Masters, and especially more so top-ranked Masters, so we're just looking at like tournaments, really top-ranked 5 stacks. You can run a 1-1-3 formation, which means that there's one character on the top, solo, one character in jungle, 3 players going down on the bottom. And so with that, Lucario is often a great top-ranked solo laner, and you do want to control that lane in the early game, like Lutano often does. Just having that first moveset often really sets it up nicely for getting the bees like we just saw right there, or dunking in these smaller point values, and we're going to explain that over and over and over again. So you know, you think about quick attack having kind of a long range, high damage, steal the wild enemy Pokemon, use Meteor Mash as sort of that repositioning tool, maybe offensive tool as well, but back off opponents from you. And Lucario's got a passive ability. It allows it to sustain a lot more hits. You can be kind of aggressive in this early game solo on the top lane. So again, we said, you know, some of these point values from anywhere, you know, 1 to 14, 16. When you have a Lucario with Score Shield right here, with that passive ability, with just being Lucario, you can score pretty quickly, and especially if they're smaller point values, they score even faster, right? We all know how that works. But the idea is that you also run it with attack weight, and so you stack the benefits of attack weight. Speaking of course, while we're talking about items here, I know that Lutano, playing as Lucario, is usually running Muscle Band, attack weight, and Score Shield. I think Sanji usually is attack weight, Razor Claw, Score Shield. Notice Lutano though, as just an example, look at how he's almost out of there. This is like 1 hit away from death, maybe 2 small hits, but notice just completely backtracking around and then securing that KO. Like, Lutano is deadly, and you can get so much just from observing matches with Lutano. I'm hoping that we really just never have to change the camera. Basically in this match, I'm just gonna try to keep it on Lutano the whole time right here. Just to kind of close out the moves, I do want to say, while maybe it's extreme speed more of the time, Power-Up Punch, often referred to as Pup. You know, you guys might hear Lutano himself or just other people saying Pup, P-U-P. You might use that for like a Venusaur or a Cinderace on the other team, especially Cinderace. You know, you can get this burst damage if you feel you're going to need that power, and I think that this would be particularly in a lot of the previous meta just over time. You can use Power-Up Punch to kind of initiate those team fights too a lot of the times. They are going to miss this Dreadnought, that first objective right now, but I was essentially going to say, just because Power-Up Punch does allow you to be unstoppable leading up to it, do a massive amount of damage, you can lower the cooldown when you hit the enemies with some of your other moves. Bone Rush is just great. I mean, we're pretty much always going to see Bone Rush right here. You can kind of utilize at least extreme speed especially, but also Bone Rush, you know, for the mobility, where you're even going up against 3 opponents, more opponents, being outnumbered like that, and Lutano is a great example to see how it should be used. When you use extreme speed on a target, you can abuse the cooldown of it, like use an attack, reset that move's cooldown, and Bone Rush. When you upgrade Bone Rush, it'll reset all the cooldowns when you do the second activation of Bone Rush. Here's Lutano trying to do those tricks again. Look at this. I mean, it's coming very, very close. I was thinking he might survive that, but it is actually going to fall right here. It was just really at the last second. Luckily for Orange, you know, they had Excellent there, that Mr. Mime player, kind of just in the right positioning. So here, it looks like Lutano is now going to travel down to this bottom lane, going to give Indy Bear assistance, who obviously Indy did see that coming. So notice how they can turn this around right away. Look at all this damage. I mean, again, it's like I say, like a conductor. Lutano's just in and out, in and out. And that's largely extreme speed. You can see all of these little blue auras underneath. For instance, the Combi and Vespiquen right here. You can E-speed every single time, hit a character with those auras and just keep on using it. In the late game, Lucario can especially take on attackers that have like fragile defenses. You know, those are really good targets. Let's say like Pikachu. Just burst them down quickly with all these combos of Bone Rush, E-speed. But you can pick off a lone Eldegoss like it's an injured young fawn or something. I mean, it's crazy. When I first started the channel, it's like, you know, they had maybe a 2-day run, maybe it was even 1-day run with Spectator Mode. And Lucario was the only Pokemon I got to basically spectate during that time before the feature went unlive, let's call it. You know, they took it away for a while, and then they brought it back with mobile's release. And so I knew just after all this time had passed now, it's been several months, we had to get another Lucario spectator match. I mean, you're never really gonna see. It would be like 9 times out of 10 is a match going to have a Lucario in it when at least it's Masters play, high-level play. There's a Lucario on the team. You know what I mean? It's an amazing Pokemon. If you want to take that example, it passed by already, so we're not quite on it at this point now, as we see Lutano, of course, TP back to base. Before starting that team battle, you know, you can throw down that Unite move, which is the Aura Cannon, throw it into a crowd of people to get, I would say, the most out of it. You can shoot it from afar. Honestly, it has a pretty good range. And if you do have Power-Up Punch, you can use the Unite move, combo that with a follow-up Power-Up Punch, because the next Power-Up Punch that you do would be increased after an Aura Cannon. I think one of the best ways to counter Lucario, I mean, other than just being generally skilled, of course, is maybe with Pokemon that have disabling abilities. Let's think Slowbro, obviously, but how often do we see a Slowbro these days? Just at the time of this recording. This was recorded in really early December, but I mean, hey, like if like Wigglytuff singing, maybe even Machamp submission. But if you want to see how to play Lucario, I mean, other than watching a guide, you know, for beginners maybe, and then perhaps watching this video if you want to see some good spectating, really, Lutano, this player, he has a Twitch, so I can link to that in the description. He also does coaching if you want to go that route. But for me, it's just all about watching Lutano just observe these masterful hands. This is going to sound like I'm in love with the guy. I mean, in some respects, I am with his Unite play. But notice this. This is the exact principle I was talking about. See how quickly, I mean, that Eldegoss stood no chance, man. So this is that principle we were speaking of the late game. You see a Pokemon with fragile defenses or a healer like that, you can catch off like half the roster in the late game and just burst out that damage quickly. He will TP back to base, and usually just kind of as one last note before we get to the final stretch of the game at the 2-minute mark, Lucario, and especially Lutano, but Lucario in general, could be that Pokemon that's the off-laning choice. So when you see everybody else might rotate up top or bottom for an objective, it's often Lucario. Could be joined by like an Eldegoss for healing, of course, somebody supporting, but even just solo, Lucario is the one that is off-laning and not rotating. So it's like you see who rotates and then you see who doesn't. Lutano, Lucario, they are the ones. But look at how quickly this Dreadnought's going down. We got that extreme speed again, abused that cooldown. Already took it down to half before Goof, as the Venusaur even showed up right here. And so notice our orange Lucario may actually demonstrate there with the Bone Rush. I mean, that teleportation, it's like, as Lucario, you are just like you're almost like a psychic type. You can teleport like mad. And so we will see who will get this last one. Luckily, that Venusaur Goof on TTV, he did have the Pedal Dance active. Notice Lutano trying to pick off Nazu right there, the Eldegoss, but he's also levels above this Lucario right here, and so that's actually going to even widen that gap further, where Lutano is level 14, Eldegoss, for example, at 11, but that Lucario that he took on is level 10. It's just madness, you guys. It's disgusting. Able to sustain through the Unite move and get this goal in, just absolutely wonderful. And I mean, when you think about spectating, you could see 100 games from Lutano playing as Lucario, and I think we did get, you know, a pretty exemplary game. Of course, this is a good one to talk about all these points for Lucario, but there's just so much that this player can do with this character, and I think of Lucario as somewhat versatile, although it's not my main or anything like that. I'm just saying there are like a certain amount of builds you can do, but when you're faced with kind of the current meta that we have and maybe fewer Pokemon on the roster at this time, as they add more, this could change, but you're kind of in those two lanes of picking, okay, well, do I go extreme speed or do I go pup? Maybe try trying to TP back here. I'm not quite sure. If you are this close to the points right now, that is a good idea to go ahead and pick them up, as Lutano has done. You know, he was hiding out in the grass, and yeah, that was a look to TP back to base, as we were saying. So that's exactly right. You know, while Zapdos was in play, I'm sure the other team was looking at it like, hey, let's take out that Lucario, because if they know anything about Lutano, that would be one thing, but just a Lucario in general, I mean, it's going to be really pivotal in those team fights, and so that's what that Zapdos is all about, right? Like let's start that team fight, win that Zapdos over. Lutano going to be doing a little dance right here, see what Mr. Mime is going to do, see what that next play is, maybe. Also, we can't account for what the team might be talking about on comms, you know, on a Discord call at the moment, and this is just deadly. It's like he's been seeking out this Mr. Mime Excellent right here. All this damage over time, not going to be able to withstand that, and look at Toon, going to come in and swipe that kill. Obviously, Lutano doing so much of that work, but it's okay, it's okay. And so as an all-rounder, not only does Lucario have that offensive capability, but it's like that mobility is really high too, with the use of extreme speed, with the use of Bone Rush. And so again, I think for any aspiring Lucario players, this is a good person to spectate. Let's go ahead and see. I think that I don't have the exact final score memorized. Let's look at it. Okay, there we go. That's going to be 332 to 200 in TTV's favor. There's a few Pokemon from my focus commentaries. We have done a spectator mode on each one individually, but just like Lucario, there's a few that deserve a repeat look, kind of a redo. So it was great to look at this one again, but if you're looking for a specific Pokemon, feel free to click the end screen on screen if you have annotations on. Just check out the full playlist to find the one that you want, and thanks for viewing.